welcome to Players in Exile. My name is Phil, and today I want to talk you through the 5e character sheet on Roll20. So, in the previous video, we created a character. The character's name was Morn. If I open up my character sheet there, she is an orc druid, and I thought I'd just talk you through the key points of the character sheet in Roll20, so you have an idea where to look when you start playing your first game. So the first thing I did is I opened up my character sheet. Well, I already know where to do that, but let me show you just how you would do that. So I'm going to close it with the cross at the top right. Let's go back to chat, for example. So we're in chat, we're in the game, and need to get to my character sheet. I go to my journal, and then I scroll down. I find my character sheet. Depends how well sorted your character's got this. My players all have their own folders, and they can't see each other's character sheets, so I can't see their character sheets, but they would be able to go into their folders to find their character sheets. In this case, I haven't put Morn in one yet, so Morn's just a recently created character, and we can open up a character sheet. Now, when you open up the character sheet, you'll notice that it only opens up about half the height of the screen. So let's just move the cursor to the bottom of the character sheet. Let's just drag it down a little bit so we can see more of it, so we can see what we've got to work with. Let's go just about there. There we go. Right. So at the top of the character sheet, we have three tabs. We have bio and info, which for me has only got a picture. We've got character sheet, and we've got attributes and abilities. Now you'll not go near this. This is like the technical stuff where we can change stuff, and we can add macros in here if we want to. And I will do a future video about how to add macros in there. But for the moment, we are actually going to focus purely on the character sheet. So we'll look at the top of the character sheet. We have the character's name, Morn. We have the character's class and level. We have their race, their alignment, how many experience points they've got, and their background. At the top right of this little section, there's a settings button. If you click it, it actually does change it, and it'll tell you the subclass, the subrace, and the level of the character as well. So there's a little bit of extra information you're not being shown initially that you can obtain by clicking on that settings button. There are settings buttons all over the place on this character sheet. Be aware of that. We then come down and we have 4 more buttons which act also as tabs. Let's be honest. So we have core, which is the main character sheet. We have bio, which will tell us more information. You can put artwork in here. You can add extra information in here if you wish to. For Morn, I haven't actually added any of this information. And then we have spells. And this will show you what spells you've got and how many slots at whatever level you've got left. Now, it depends how you want to do this. You can either count up or count down, but it has a slots remaining section, and I have 2 slots in total at first level. So I will tend to start with 2. So I will put that up to 2, and as I cast a spell, I will then reduce that down by 1, then reduce that down to 0. You also have the little red dots for character classes that don't have all of their spells, but know lots more. For example, wizards. You can indicate which spells that you have learnt for that day by putting a red dot beside their names. I know my cleric particularly does that in my party. When you move a mouse over a spell, you have info, which will expand the spell so you can read it. So we can see the details of Cure Wounds. It's an evocation 1 spell, it takes 1 action, touch, a creature you touch. The components, the duration is instantaneous and exactly what it does. You can also post this to the chat. So if you all say, oh, I want to cast this spell, and the DM is not very familiar with it, and says, oh, can you just pop the description in chat for me? You can click that. And when we go down here, you have the description in chat. So Cure Wounds, and the spell save DC is 12. You can also see your spell save DC at the top of your spell list sheet. You can see your spell attack bonus, and you can also see your spell casting ability. In this case, for Morn, that's Wisdom. If I actually want to cast a spell, I can click on the actual name of the spell where it turns red. You can see it's turned red, and it asks me at what level I want to cast it. I can only cast this one at first level, so cast at first level. There you go. I do 6 wounds. I heal 6 wounds. Don't do 6 wounds. It's cure wounds, not cause wounds. Notice that it doesn't, in this case, reduce my spell slots remaining, so I'm going to do that manually. If I want to collapse this back, I could just click on the eye again. If we look at Ice Knife is an attack. It's an interesting attack, actually. If we cast Ice Knife, you'll see it does. It's rolled a 21 to hit, so it's likely to hit whatever I've just cast it as. And if I click on the damage for Ice Knife, when it hits it basically, when it hits or it misses, it explodes. So it's done 4 piercing to my initial target, and then it would have done 7 cold damage, and it does it to the initial target and any target within 5 feet of it, or any creature. That includes players, and they would have to make a DC 12 Dexterity saving throw, or they take no cold damage. So that's your basic spell, your spell list. Let's go back to the core again. If you're DM, if you've been particularly good role playing, you've done something particularly inspirational, and the DM decides to award you a point of inspiration, you can record it here in the little inspiration box at the top on the left. Beneath that, you have your proficiency bonus, and then just below that, you have your saving throws. The ones being ticked are the ones you're proficient in. Now, this particular spell I cast would have required, or if someone cast it at me, for example, it would have required me to make a dexterity saving throw. So I don't have particularly good dex, but if I want to make a dexterity saving throw, I come over to that box, I highlight dexterity, so it's highlighted in red, I click on it, and it'll do dexterity saving throw. So pretty miserably, I took, that was shot at me, I would be dead, because it would have done me 4 piercing, 7 cold. I've got 10 hit points. You can see this in the middle of my my character sheet. So I would actually now be dead. I would be on -1 hit point. You have a hit point maximum. If we're talking about hit points, you have your current hit points. So let's say I got caught in the blast of that and I took those 7 hit points. I can use the up and down arrows to modify my hit points, or equally I could just go in here and I can say, well, I've taken 7 damage, so I'm now on 3 hit points. You have temporary hit points. So if you cast a spell which boosts you up and gives you temporary hit points, you'll find them. You can, let's say I get 5 extra temporary hit points, so I can put them in there. Just put my hit points back up to 10. So on the left hand side, you have your saving throws. Then you have all your skills. The ones ticked are the ones you're proficient in. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to spot if there's anything, or I've walked into a room and I just want to see if I can see anything that might be out of place. You know, looking for traps, that sort of thing. I might be asked to roll perception. So again, I just click on perception where it's red, and I've rolled terribly. These rolls are really not doing me any favours today, are they? Oh dear. Now I know what players feel like. And just below that, I have my passive wisdom perception. Which the DM might ask me to give them a figure. Let's, for example, say I'm sitting in maybe I'm around a campfire and I'm sitting there, and he wants to know whether I've heard that particularly nasty wolf sneaking up behind me that's about to bite me in the throat. He might ask for my passive perception, which is quite high for my character. It's 14. To the left of where we were looking at our saving throws and our skills, we have our ability scores. Now, the large numbers on our ability scores represent the modifiers. So I've got a +2 on Constitution, I've got a -1 on Dexterity, and the small numbers represent the actual totals that I've got. So you can see I've got a 15 Constitution, I've got a 15 Wisdom, etc. I might be asked to make, for example, a strength save. Not strength save, sorry, a strength check. Strength save is here. A standard strength check would be up here. You can see as I move the mouse over it, it turns red. I click on strength, and I've made another atrocious roll. By this point, my character's well and truly dead, I would think, no matter what the DM has asked me to roll. Following on down the left-hand side, we have, I've got a herbalism kit. And you've then got the items in which you have proficiencies. I've got my language proficiencies. I can speak Common, Druidic, Goblin, Orc. I've got what weapons I can use, and I can use light or medium armor. Scroll up a bit. Let's have a look at the middle column, shall we? So you've got your armor class. My armor class is atrocious. It's 10. I'm not a frontline fighter. The idea of this character, I think, would be more sort of a support character than let's try and get up in their faces. With an armor class of 10, I'm likely to die quite quickly. I have a relatively low initiative. Again, if the DM asks me to roll initiative, I can move the mouse over my initiative box here. You'll see it turns red and it rolls initiative. And the reason I pause there is because if you're rolling initiative in the game, there isn't an initiative tracker. In order to get your score on the initiative tracker, you have to select your token first. So if I roll this initiative, I'll get a message. It says you wanted to send the result of this roll to the turn tracker, but no valid token was selected. So whenever you're rolling initiative, if you're using Roll20 properly, you're using tokens, you're using maps, make sure to select your token first and then do it, and then it will add your initiative value to the initiative tracker. It's one of those little foibles of Roll20. My players still forget, they've been playing for a year. Have to make sure you've got your token selected first. We've talked about hit points and temporary hit points. Here you have a hit die. At the moment I only have one, so if I was on a short rest and I was trying to heal some hit points back from that blast I took earlier on, I could roll my hit die. Oh, I've gained 10 hit points. Finally, the dice work in my favour. But I would have used that up, so I will put that back to 0 until we long rest and I get that back. Next to the hit dice, you have death saves. So let's say I did die because I took all 11, so I'm on 0 hit points. And I have to make a death save. So I make a death save, that's actually a pass. So I'm going to mark that as a success. I have to make another death save, that's a failure. Mark it as a failure. Oh, no, not that one. You make it as a failure there. Another death save, I pass that. Another death save, and I pass that. And I can unmark them all, and I'm now stable. Beneath this, you have your attacks and spell casting. So you can see I cast Ice Knife from my spell list, but because it is an attack, I can also cast Ice Knife from here. I can also do Primal Savagery. So for example, I could do Primal Savagery, and then I can roll the damage. 10. I could do a two-handed quarterstaff, for example. Oh, that's a critical miss. I can even do Cure Wounds from here as well. So you have this very useful block of attacks and spellcasting in the middle. And then below that, you've got your gold. I've only got 5 gold pieces, so I've got platinum, gold, electrum, silver, copper. I won't really go into the details of those, but you can keep track of your gold there. And I've got my items. So speaking of items, let's say we've been hunting around and we've fought off those skeletons and we've killed a few giant spiders and we found the loot. And in the loot, the DM decides it's a quarterstaff +1. And everyone turns to me and says, well, you use a quarterstaff, so you can have that quarterstaff +1. And I'm like, all right, thank you very much. Now I needed to add it to my character sheet. One of the things Roll20 I think does very well is it lets you drag and drop things onto your character sheet. So if I go to the compendium, which is the information button at the top right, and I'm going to search for quarterstaff. Don't really need to type it in all, but you can see I've got quarterstaff +1. So I want to add quarterstaff +1 to my character sheet. I can literally, from there, I can drag and I can drop it. See, it says accepting drop from compendium. Pop it in. So now I've got a quarterstaff +1. And I've also got a quarterstaff +1 down here. Now I might at this point think, well, you know what? I don't need my original quarterstaff. I'm going to throw that away. So what I want to do is I want to delete it from my items. At the bottom right on your items, there's a little padlock. If you click on the little padlock, it lets you delete items. So let's say I find my quarterstaff, which is there, don't want it anymore, I'm going to delete it. Going to go down, lock the padlock again so I don't delete anything else accidentally, and you can see that's removed the quarterstaff from my attacks. Interestingly, if we go back to chat, and I now use this quarterstaff to attack, and then I do its damage, yeah, I thought it would. They set this up in a very weird way, so it's not set up properly, and it's a little bit of a niggle of mine. But what it's supposed to be doing is it's supposed to be doing one-handed damage and two-handed damage at the same time, and you pick whichever you're using. But it's not adding the bonuses correctly to the two-handed damage. And in fact, it's not even describing that. So you'd have to go, oh, I've done 6 there, and then I've got, well, plus strength, plus magic. So what you may find yourself needing to do is you may not find yourself needing to edit. Now you can see as I'm moving the mouse over any of these, they've got a little settings button. Told you there's settings buttons everywhere in this character sheet. I click on it. This is getting quite advanced now. I want to edit this particular damage type. So I'm going to do plus strength and make it bludgeoning. I don't know if it's going to let me do the magic on twice. It's interesting. You might have to create it as a separate damage type. Maybe that's why I do it with the original one. So if I do that, and I now attack with it, do that. Manage to roll a whole 1 plus 1. Yeah, it's not adding the magic, is it? Because the magic bonus is there. It's only adding it to the primary damage. So effectively, I think what this is saying is you've either got to add in the plus 1 manually, which would make it correct, but then you've got to remember to do it, or you need to make a second two-handed type, which is what the standard quarterstaff has, which means it's probably quicker to edit the standard quarterstaff. Roll20 isn't perfect. So that's the attacks. Let's have a look at armor. Let's say we come across some leather armor and it's magical and it's a leather armor plus 1, and again the party says, well, you can have that, Morn. You've got a rubbish armor class, you probably need it. Again, we can go to the compendium, we can type leather, it's searching, and we can find leather armor plus 1. And when we drag this on here, we're going to get a warning. That warning, AC is not incorrect. Unequip extra armor or shield from item details. Now, if you look, I've got leather armor, and I've also got leather armor plus 1. So if I untick the leather armor, I technically unequip it, and now the warning's gone away, and I'm fine. But I am still carrying it. It's still costing me weight, so you're more likely to want to get rid of that one as well. Boom. Lock that. One of the other things you can do is both on your attacks and on your items is you can move things around. You can see you've got your little sort of burger button on the left hand side. If you move the mouse over and click it, you can drag things up. So I could put my leather armor at the top, and I could put my quarterstaff at the top because they're my 2 most valuable items probably. Equally up here, if I do this, if I want to move my quarterstaff damage to the top, I could do that. You can do the same on other lists as well. For example, you might want to move your languages above your armor, so you could come over here, drag your languages above your armor. Obviously, there's a little bit of personal preference going on there. I don't tend to mess around with them, but I just thought I'd show that you can. Right at the bottom, if your DM insists that you track your encumbrance, well, your encumbrance is recorded there. You've got things like rations. You can edit the number of rations if you're using your rations up as you go along, or you're using your torches up. It depends how much bookkeeping your DM likes you to do. You've got your personality traits if you selected them. Class resources, so things like key points, sorcery points, they will be in here. just trying to think of what the Paladin's version is called, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. And then you have your features and traits on the right hand side. Again, if you click on these, they expand. So they don't have a little info button, they just click to expand. So I might say to the DM, I get to use a bonus action. I can move my speed towards the enemy. Not that I would with this particular character, but and then I might say, okay, show me that. Again, click on the little bubble for the chat symbol, and you can go all aggressive in chat. If you want to add more features, let's say the DM at some point in the campaign, I don't know, you get bitten by a werewolf and you end up suffering from lycanthropy, you can click on the plus. Source, it could be sort of other, and it could be like bitten by werewolf. And then you could be immune to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks. Actually, it would be non-magical, non-silvered. For example, one of my characters actually did turn into a werewolf for a while, and it kind of made her invulnerable to a lot of the attacks that at the time, the monsters that were attacking them didn't really have magical attacks, and so she was largely invulnerable to what they were trying to do to her. She was the ultimate tank. I traded that for a boost in her AC. I think that was fair. And now she has glittery skin, which I think she's quite happy with. So that's your main basic character sheet, but there's some other options that are kind of tucked away. On the right hand side here, we have a little settings button. And I deliberately avoided that earlier. Now there is a lot of information on here, and I'm not going to go into all of it. As you become more an advanced player, you might want to start messing around with here, but it's these options at the top that I want to concentrate on. So roll queries, at the moment I'm set on never roll advantage, so you can see whenever I'm rolling, I'm just rolling a straight up number. If we click on that, we have options. We can always roll advantage, which is what my players do, and then we pick the first number, or we pick the highest, or we pick the lowest, depending on whether they've got advantage or disadvantage. You've got advantage toggle, which gives you little options to switch between them at the top. We've got query advantage, which when you click on something will actually ask you if you want to roll advantage, and we've got never roll advantage. So I'm going to put the advantage toggle on for the moment. Next up, we've got whisper rolls to GM, and you've got nether whisper rolls. Well, that's really not very useful. Again, we've got a whisper toggle, which is what I would encourage my players to use. You've got query whisper. The reason I wouldn't use the queries is because every time you click on something, it's going to ask, do you want to do this to the GM? And so it will get annoying very quickly. You can always whisper rolls as well, which I wouldn't put on either. So I would have to toggle on again. And you've got the auto damage. Now, the auto damage is a personal preference. We were in a situation in our last combat in my game on Friday whereby I had NPCs that could react after they were hit but before damage was rolled, and I could decide whether they wanted to Misty Step. It was a recharge option, otherwise it would be far too powerful, so it was a recharge 5/6. They can Misty Step instead of taking the damage. Now, if you had auto roll damage on and you rolled to your attack, let's do that. Let's just go back. We'll go to core. We'll roll with advantage. We're going to do it to the public. Let's roll quarterstaff. So 17 actually would have hit. Their arms class was 17. But the damage has already been rolled, so I can already, as a DM, make an informed judgment based on their current hit points as to whether I want to move out or not, based on the amount of damage, because I have what's called perfect information. So I would not have my players have auto damage on. You can see we had advantage on, so you can see that it's given us the darker. This one was the lower score, so it's graded out. So we're using the 17, and you can see it was also to a public. Let's go back to core. Let's do one to the GM, maybe with disadvantage. Let's say it's a different sort of roll, actually. Let's say we're doing a Constitution save with disadvantage to the GM. Well, I got an 11. If it wasn't with disadvantage, if it was with advantage, I might have got a 22. But yeah, so I've probably just failed that roll, depending on what I was tested for. So those options are really useful. I would, as I say, my party doesn't actually do this. What we do is we do always roll advantage that way. And then what that does is it means that let's do, I don't know, let's do primal savagery. Savagery. I like the idea of primal savagery. We're still doing it to GM, but it just rolls both numbers. So we take the first number if it's a normal attack. If it's with advantage, we'd take the 21. If it was with disadvantage, we'd take the 9. I hope you found that all very interesting, and I hope you found that useful. My name is Phil. This is Players in Exile. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Please come and join us on the community. This is Facebook and Discord links in the comments below. I'll also put links for the how to create your character in the comments as well. My name's Phil. It's been fun. Goodbye.